The sky over Antarctica was an unbroken sheet of gray, a heavy silence hanging over the icy expanse. The year was 1996, and the United Nations-backed scientific expedition codenamed Project Hyperion had just lost contact with its field teams of the world's top glaciologists, seismologists, and cryptographers who were investigating an unexplained magnetic anomaly beneath the ice near the geographic South Pole. The last transmission from the team had been garbled, but the words "we found something it's not man-made" were unmistakable. Then silence. Satellite telemetry showed their camp had been abandoned, equipment left mid-operation, heat signatures gone. A storm had moved in shortly after the last transmission, delaying any rescue attempt for 72 hours. When the weather cleared, a joint team from the U.S. Navy and Chilean Special Forces was deployed to investigate. What they found defied every protocol and explanation. The base was intact, food trays still warm, monitors flashing with cryptic readings, coffee half drunk, but not a single trace of the scientists remained. No struggle, no blood, no signs of retreat. Only one clue was left behind, etched into the metal wall of the communications trailer using what appeared to be a plasma torch, or 3 words. They are watching. News of the incident never reached the public. Officially, the Hyperion team perished in a storm-induced icequake. But behind closed doors, a multinational intelligence committee was formed under the codename Nemesis Directive. Their mission, to determine what the team had discovered and whether it posed a threat. Enter Dr. Marcus Ryland, a former astrophysicist turned conspiracy podcaster who had spent the last decade tracking Black Ops missions to the Antarctic region. After a whistleblower sent him an encrypted data drive containing partial logs from Project Hyperion, he became obsessed. There were coordinates, seismic readings that made no geological sense, and worst of all, satellite captures, blacked out in mainstream databases, showing a perfect hexagonal structure buried under 2 miles of ice, pulsing with thermal energy. Marcus, convinced the structure was not natural, traced references to it back through deep Cold War files. The Soviets had found it first in 1957 and had sent a team to drill through the ice, only to lose them all. Their files referred to it as Zvezda Chornaya, the Black Star. Marcus's investigation led him to a survivor of that Soviet expedition, now in a dementia care facility in Lithuania. The man, before descending into delusion, had one lucid moment when Marcus asked what they found beneath the ice. He whispered, "It was never ours. We were trespassers in a tomb." Despite threats and surveillance, Marcus continued his quest, gathering a team of truth seekers including Eva Chen, an ex-CIA analyst turned cryptographer, and Darnell Rhodes, a rogue seismologist with deep ties to DARPA. They planned to retrace Hyperion's path, find the anomaly, and uncover the truth before the black-budget agencies did. As they prepared to embark for Antarctica under the guise of a documentary film crew, Marcus received an anonymous package. Inside was a worn journal, wrapped in oilskin. It belonged to Dr. Elaine Grigslead, scientist of Project Hyperion. The last entry, scrawled and smeared with something red, read, "It's waking up, it's listening through the ice." What followed was a map, not of the terrain but of something beneath it, something impossible, something alive. The cold in Antarctica is not just a temperature, it is a presence. It presses against your lungs, clings to your skin, and whispers things that aren't there. For Marcus Ryland and his team, the descent into that frozen abyss was less a journey and more an unraveling. Armed with false IDs, satellite comms, and 2 snow crawlers disguised as research equipment, they breached the last checkpoint of civilization, a Chilean research station, whose commander was quietly paid off in crypto and satellite uplink to look the other way. Eva Chen sat in the crawler's rear compartment, decrypting the final log files from the journal of Dr. Elaine Griggs. The coordinates matched the ones Marcus had obtained, but the deeper metadata told a darker story. Timestamps had been altered, entries duplicated in strange patterns, as though someone or something had tried to erase them but failed to understand human logic. One image embedded in the final log, seemingly a glitch, resolved slowly into a heat map. The thermal signature was clear, a geometric structure shaped like a star, pulsing with regular intervals from beneath the ice, nearly 2 miles below the surface. Darnell Rhodes, analyzing the seismic scans from the original Hyperion mission, grew pale. "These aren't natural vibrations," he muttered. "They're rhythmic, like code, like a signal." He played back a low-frequency audio file recorded just before the Hyperion team vanished. At first it was static, then came a sound that turned the marrow of their bones. A deep, resonant hum, rising and falling in a perfect loop every 37 seconds. "It's breathing," Eva whispered as they approached the site marked in the journal. The landscape changed. Satellite images had shown a flat ice field, but what they found instead was a crater 2 kilometers wide, invisible from above, and utterly smooth. No snow accumulation, no wind patterns, as if the environment itself had been neutralized. At the center, an elevator shaft, ancient and black, covered in a layer of ice so thin it looked like glass. It was the exact spot where Hyperion had vanished. the team set up camp, broadcasting false environmental readings to mislead any surveillance drones. But on the second night, Darnell was awoken by a low vibration in the ground. He stepped out of his tent to find Marcus already awake, standing at the edge of the crater. Marcus pointed silently toward the shaft. A light had appeared, not reflected light, emitted a deep blue glow rising from somewhere far below, pulsing in the same rhythm as the seismic hum. Without sleep, the team began rigging a descent platform. The shaft was ancient, too perfect to be human. Its edges were mathematically flawless, its inner walls engraved with symbols none of them recognized. Ava ran them through every known linguistic and symbolic system: Sumerian, Mayan, Phoenician, even speculative alien scripts from classified SETI data leaks. Nothing matched, except for an obscure symbol found etched into a stone, discovered in Göbekli Tepe, Turkey, a site older than civilization. The symbol was a warning. Here lies the voice that made the stars. They descended at 600 meters. The crawler's lights began to flicker. At 1,000 meters, their instruments began recording impossible metrics: temperature spikes, localized gravity reversals, and what appeared to be fluctuations in time itself. At 1,732 meters, the descent platform halted, not due to mechanical failure but as though something had caught it. They had arrived. Before them stretched a vast underground chamber, lit not by any known source, but by veins of bioluminescent material running along the walls. The structure at the center, black, 10-sided, and pulsating, hovered 2 feet off the icy ground, untouched by time. Surrounding it were humanoid skeletons encased in ice, arranged in circular patterns. Some were modern scattered remains of the Hyperion team, identifiable by their gear. Others were ancient, beyond ancient. The team stepped forward, cameras rolling, minds racing. Ava approached the structure with her scanner. The pulse matched the seismic hum. She leaned in closer and placed her hand on its surface. It stopped humming. The lights dimmed. The chamber fell silent, and then the voice spoke, not in words, in impressions, in raw information that injected itself into their minds like fire. Images of stars being born, civilizations rising and collapsing in the blink of an eye, of Earth itself being planted, not created by entities that once watched but never interfered, until now. Marcus collapsed to his knees, clutching his head. Darnell screamed, his nose bleeding, trying to tear the headset from his skull. Ava stood still, unmoving, eyes locked on the structure, and then she spoke. But it was not her voice. "They are not coming," she said. "They have always been." Here the ice around them groaned. Something was waking up, and it remembered them. The silence after Ava's transformation was not paset, was a weight, pressing down on everything. Marcus struggled to his feet, ears ringing with a residual frequency that made his vision blur at the edges. Darnell sat against the crawler, breathing heavily, his pupils dilated as if he'd seen too much too fast. But Ava was no longer Ava. Her posture was alien, precise, still, as if her body were a vessel waiting for instruction. Her voice, when it returned, was layered, her own tone wrapped in something deeper, resonant, ancient. She turned slowly, her eyes glowing faintly blue, and looked at Marcus. "Do not be afraid," she said, though her voice filled the air like thunder wrapped in silk. "The transmission was not intended for you." Marcus tried to speak but found his throat dry. "What are you?" he finally managed. "We are memory. Architects. Watchers. You called us gods when you first crawled from the oceans, and demons when you forgot. You were never alone, not in your cradle, not in your conquests, not now." Darnell muttered a prayer, under his breath. "It's a goddamn AI," he whispered. "Some kind of ancient alien program." Ava's brain just became a terminal. Ava smiled faintly. "Not artificial, not intelligence. We are what came before the artificial. Before the intelligence, your machines are echoes, reflections in mud. You are the afterimage of a failed experiment." Marcus's heart pounded. He recalled a line from Elaine Griggs's journal. "It's listening through the ice." But now he understood it had always been listening. The ice wasn't a prison. It was insulation. A veil, and someone had just torn it open. The chamber began to shift. The black structure in the center of the room, 10-sided, humming again, rose silently into the air. As it did, ice melted in perfect circular patterns beneath it, revealing what looked like conduits or tunnels, stretching outward like veins. Into the darkness, at the ends of each tunnel were more chambers, more structures, possibly more terminals. Or worse, more receivers. Marcus backed away. "We need to shut this down." "You misunderstand," Ava said, not moving. "There is nothing to shut down. There is only awakening." She walked to the center of the chamber, placing her hand once again on the hovering monolith. The lights pulsed, and then through the floor of the chamber holographic map projected itself upward. It was not Earth. At least, not now. The land masses were wrong. The orientation off Antarctica was near the equator, green and lush. The atmosphere bore different chemical markers. It was Earth from millions of years ago, and around it, orbiting like watchful eyes, were 12 identical structures, satellites, stations, sentinels. "The seeds were planted when your oceans were still warm," Ava said. "We came to observe. You were not our first experiment, nor the last. but you are the loudest. So we buried the gateway. Darnell stood up. Gateway to what? To the others. That's when the signal hit. Far above them. On the surface, the backup satellite comm system Marcus had left behind began to spike. It transmitted data it wasn't programmed to understand. Pulses, sequences that defied binary. Hundreds of petabytes of encoded information shot out through the ionosphere. Across the globe, listening posts, radio telescopes, secret government arrays all detected it, and all of them came to the same conclusion. It was not of this Earth. In Washington, red alert protocols were triggered. The Nemesis directive was activated at the highest level. Orders were sent to neutralize the site, but it was too late. The world had already heard. Back beneath the ice, Marcus and Darnell began recording everything, scanning the projections, mapping the sequence. But something else was happening now. The walls around them began to grow warm. Not from mechanical heat but from presence. Something was moving beneath them, a shape so vast it couldn't be comprehended. It wasn't waking up, it was arriving. Or maybe it had always been there, waiting to be acknowledged. The floor cracked. Ice shattered in lines to straight to be natural. Ava collapsed, her body seizing, then falling limp. The glow faded from her eyes. Marcus rushed to her side, but when he touched her, her skin was colder than the chamber had ever been. She blinked and whispered, "They're inside us now." Marcus recoiled. "What do you mean they?" She looked at him, face twisted in pain. "Not invaders. Not parasites. Memories. Seeds. We were built to carry them. This place? It's just the terminal. We're the operating system." Suddenly, lights shot up along the tunnels, branching out from the chamber. Each one flared with the same blue glow. Darnell stared at the display, shaking his head. "There's more than one," he said. "This isn't the only site." Marcus turned, realization dawning. "It's a network." He looked up at the monolith. Its surface was changing now, revealing something underneath, glyphs becoming words, symbols shifting into language. And then, one phrase repeated across every surface. Synchronization, 12% complete. They had started something and they were no longer in control. The world didn't change all at once. It unraveled quietly at first, like the fraying edge of a vast, unseen tapestry. 2 days after the Antarctic throne awakened, strange atmospheric anomalies began to appear across the globe. Pulses of low frequency sound were recorded from the depths of the Mariana Trench. 1,000 miles inland, the desert sands near Luxor rearranged themselves into fractal spirals visible only from the upper atmosphere. The giant Moai statues of Easter Island vibrated in unison at dawn, humming in tones no one could explain. By the 5th day, for more thrones had synchronized. Marcus Ryland stood at the edge of the crater, watching as the Antarctic ice collapsed inward, sealing the underground chamber beneath a column of rising steam. Ava remained unconscious, her body still burning with low-grade electromagnetic pulses, as if she were a living antenna. Darnell had tried to initiate a distress call, but every comm system, satellite, shortwave, even analog was overridden by a continuous signal, a looping sequence of 13 tones. They didn't know what it meant, but the world governments did. The Nemesis directive went fully operational. Across the globe, black site bunkers opened. Nuclear codes were verified. The original contingency, written in 1963 after the Soviets first encountered what they called Zvezda, was activated. If the thrones awaken, mankind must respond with extinction or submission. There was no in-between. But Marcus had a different plan. He and Darnell airlifted Ava still unconscious using a stolen Russian cargo drone, flying blind through polar storms toward an uncharted island in the South Pacific. Marcus had found the coordinates in Elaine Griggs's journal, an atoll no longer listed on any maps, erased after a 1972 deep-sea excavation gone catastrophically wrong. There, buried beneath coral and volcanic stone, was the 6th throne. Ava awoke mid-flight, whispering fragments of ancient language. Her eyes flickered between awareness and something other. "You're going to the anchor," she mumbled. "The first one built. The place where they landed, where they divided themselves." Marcus asked her what the thrones really were. She answered slowly, between labored breaths. "They're not machines, they're scars, left on the body of your planet to hold consciousness in place. Before them, reality was fluid, thought and matter no boundary. They used the thrones to shape worlds, to make memory permanent." Darnell frowned. "So what happens when they all synchronize?" Ava's voice lowered. "Then permanence ends." They reached the atoll at night. It glowed faintly beneath the waves, bioluminescent patterns spiraling outward from its center. The 6th throne had already begun to rise, lifting from the seafloor like a leviathan awakening after eons of sleep. Crustaceans and coral fell away as the black structure emerged, pulsing with that now familiar rhythm, the breath of something eternal. As they approached, Ava stood unaided, her strength seemingly restored. "This is where I leave you," she said. Marcus reached for her. "What are you talking about?" "I'm just a door now," she replied with a soft smile, "and the architects are ready to step through." Before he could stop her, she stepped into the throne's light. It enveloped her instantly, no heat, no scream, just pure, white illumination, and then she was gone. In her place, The sixth throne projected its final message. Synchronization, 100% complete. The sky turned red. Across the world, the alarm activated in perfect harmony. The atmosphere above each site rippled as though reality itself were flexing. In the Giza Plateau, tourists watched as the space between the Great Pyramids shimmered like a mirage, then vanished entirely. In the Arctic, ice broke into perfectly symmetrical hexagons. Deep beneath the Amazon, a tribe untouched by civilization fell to their knees as the stars began to realign, and above, Earth emerging from the darkness of the Oort cloud had arrived. Prime consciousness, a shape without definition, vast, shifting, impossible to see in totality. It cast no shadow, but eclipsed the sun to all instruments. Every radio telescope went silent. Every satellite failed, but every human felt it, in dreams, in their blood, in the echo of a language they didn't know but somehow understood. The architects had returned. Marcus and Darnell stood alone on the island, staring up as the sky fractured. Like glass, the laws of physics began to bend. Colors appeared that had no name. Gravity pulsed. Across the ocean, the horizon folded. A choice, once more, was offered, and this time, the question wasn't spoken in words. It was burned into existence. Will you let go of your permanence? All across the earth, people dreamed of other lives, of ancestors, of stars, of alien worlds, of time before time. Some said yes, some resisted. The world split not into nations, but into realities, layers of existence branching like nerves. Some chose to embrace the return, others fought against it. Some disappeared entirely. Marcus made his choice. He turned to Darnell and stepped into the light. Transmission ends. File encrypted. Designated as Hyperion Cycle 1A, awaiting synchronization with Cycle 2. The end. The phrase echoed in Marcus's mind like a drumbeat he couldn't shut out. Synchronization, 12% complete. The chamber thrummed with rising energy, low and deep, as if the ice itself were breathing. Ava lay still, her body twitching as if she were caught between dimensions. Darnell was scanning the glyphs in panic, mumbling algorithms, trying to break the encryption of the monolith. But it wasn't code. It was language living, evolving, rewriting itself faster than any quantum processor could follow. Marcus took a slow step backward and turned to the center of the room where the monolith now floated higher. Beneath it, the floor had melted entirely, revealing a smooth black disk covered in concentric rings of ancient text. As he stared, the outermost ring rotated with a click, like the dial of a massive lock dot. Then came the second word, the one no one expected, the one no one wanted to see. Reactivation. Suddenly, the lights from the distant tunnels flared again, this time with varying colors: red, violet, and green. Each pulse in a different rhythm, forming a pattern, coordinated, intelligent. Ava's voice broke the silence once again, but she wasn't conscious. She was reciting. No, channeling. 12 seats, 12 codes, 12 awakenings, she gasped. We were never meant to stay dormant. Marcus pulled out the data slate and began recording. What seats? What codes? Ava's voice, overlaid with another, deeper tone, replied. The thrones, anchors left behind by the architects. They are not machines. They are fragments of consciousness, spread across the earth. We built them to survive time. We built them to return. Darnell spun around. You're telling me there are 11 more of these structures around the planet? A pause. Ava's eyes opened. Blood trickled from her nose. 11. Already waking. They stared at the monolith as it rotated again. Another glyph slid into place. Synchronization, 18% complete. From the tunnels, distant sounds emerged. Clicking, grinding, the scraping of ice on metal or bone. Darnell grabbed the plasma cutter from the supply crate. We need to shut it down now. We overload the energy cells, collapse the tunnel. No, Ava said, weakly. It's too late. You can't stop what's already begun. You think this is a system. It's not. It's a being. Each throne is a node. Each activation is a memory returning. When all 12 awaken, the architects will be whole again. Marcus remembered the satellite map, the other signals. He'd seen them, strange interference patterns in old military data. All over the globe, Lake Vostok, Easter Island, the Giza Plateau, the Mariana Trench. Each site was a dormant node. Each one now starting to pulse. Suddenly, the monolith projected a three-dimensional map. The Earth now glowing with 12 points of light. But the scale shifted, and beyond Earth, the network expanded. The Moon, Mars, Europa, even interstellar space. Threads of connection long dormant now, glowing faintly. And above them all, a dark shape, massive, hidden in what appeared to be the Oort cloud, labeled simply, the Prime Consciousness. Darnell's face went pale. They're not just here, they're coming back. The chamber shook violently. One of the tunnels collapsed. From it, something emerged. Not a creature, not entirely. A silhouette vaguely humanoid but shifting, fluid, as if light bent wrong around it. It walked on two legs, but moved like a shadow underwater. And worse, it looked at them. Ava convulsed again, screaming. It's a proxy, a projection. The throne is testing humanity's neural response. Marcus raised his camera. You mean this is what, a probe? No, she said. It's the question. The entity stepped forward and spoke not with sound, but with thought. It asked something. A single idea beamed into every mind present. Will you accept a return? Ava screamed again, clutching her head. Darnell stepped forward, weapon raised. We never invited you. The entity tilted its head, almost in amusement. Then it moved fast. Darnell fired the plasma cutter. The beam passed through it, like light through water. The entity flickered, and for a moment, split into two mirrored images before recombing. Marcus shouted Ava. What do we do? She gasped, her eyes wide with fear. Don't answer the question. Don't think it. It uses acceptance to sync, but Marcus had already thought it, and the monolith flared. Synchronization. 24% complete. The entity vanished. So did the projections. The room fell silent, but something had changed. Marcus stood in shock, breathing hard. He looked at Ava, now unconscious. Again, then, at Darnell, who whispered, "We just moved the clock forward." Above them, miles of ice cracked. The energy released by the monolith had begun a thermal chain reaction. The roof was weakening. And somewhere far away, deep in space, a signal echoed back 12 THRONES. 12 questions. One answer. And now they knew someone had accepted.